Hello everyone, my friends over at NVIDIA have sent me this behemoth of a monitor, the ROG Swift PG27U 4K HDR G-Sync high refresh rate monitor. What does all of that even mean, Dado? I will explain, don't worry. I know, I just threw a lot of buzzwords at you, but they sent me this monitor. This video is sponsored by them. And they were like, we're going to send you a monitor and we want you to check it out and do a video on it. And I said, well, all right. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to unbox this thing and I'm going to do a little showcase for you guys and kind of give you my thoughts on this monitor. Right off the bat, we're going to talk about the visuals of Destiny 2. We'll get to those buzzwords in a minute. So, Destiny, pretty good looking game already on PC. I know it's a very optimized game as well as far as being able to run it on older generation graphics cards and look good at the same time and keep you at that 60 FPS range. And for the most part, I don't think many people have a problem with how Destiny looks as a game. In fact, I think it's been one of the most positively reviewed things about the game over the course of its history. It is one of the few games that supports HDR, high dynamic range. Now, I've never been huge into going beyond 1080p because I've never really thought that I needed it. I tend to play games that require high refresh rates and frame rates and thus drop a lot of my settings too low in order to get as much performance as possible. But, you know, now we got this monitor to try out, some HDR action, and, you know, I thought Destiny looked pretty good already, but we can flip the switch on the HDR with this monitor. Now, I can't show you guys exactly what it looks like since I would need to make an HDR video and you would need to have an HDR monitor to actually see it, but I can simulate the experience for you guys and twist a couple knobs right here, and it basically looks like this. HDR, as I'll explain later, looks to give you a better visual experience in your games or your videos or whatever you're watching by giving you 10-bit color instead of 8-bit color, and that's simplified dramatically. As you can probably tell, we have darker dark areas, brighter bright spots, more vibrant color, things look richer. The color is just really, really good looking. By far the best I have ever seen Destiny 2 look, or basically any other game that I've ever played. HDR just looks absolutely amazing, and being able to play it at a refresh rate higher than 60 hertz is fantastic. As we'll go over, I'll kind of talk about why HDR, 4K, and over 60 hertz hasn't really been a thing until lately. Playing at 60 hertz is good, but after playing at 144 for the past however long I've been doing it, playing at 60 just felt sluggish at times, and with this monitor, I don't get that feeling too much, if at all. Without HDR on, after experiencing HDR, the game almost looks like it's washed out a little bit. It still looks great, but with HDR, it is just really, really something beautiful to look at. On the 120 hertz setting of this monitor, we're not at strict 10-bit color, we're at 8-bit with dithering, so the computer is essentially making an approximation, but it still looks absolutely phenomenal. And that's basically what I wanted to show and talk about in this part of the video. Playing Destiny 2 in 4K in HDR with G-Sync at higher than 60 hertz refresh rate. In short, it is a thing of absolute beauty if you couldn't tell from what I've been saying already, and I cannot wait for more games to get HDR and for HDR to become more widely available. I've gotten the question of, what's your favorite visual from Destiny? Like, basically, what's my favorite thing to look at in the game in Destiny 2? I've gotten that question a bunch, and I thought it would be cool for me to answer it in this video since we're going to be talking about HDR and stuff. For me, I think the Argos boss arena is still one of my favorites, but with the addition of the Whisper quest, it's gotten real close. Argos has just felt so different compared to a lot of the other skyboxes and areas that we've ever explored. It just kind of feels like you're in the middle of space. There's a lot of particle effects going on. Very, very cool looking area. As for the Whisper mission, I really like the sense of scale You feel so small in comparison to going on everything around you. That's why I really like the raid environments. It makes you feel really, really tiny because these areas just feel so huge. Mercury and the Infinite Forest, from a visual standpoint, also very, very cool looking, especially when standing by the lighthouse and just kind of getting an overall view of the entire place, especially in HDR. It looks very, very nice. And the Pyramidion has been my favorite strike this year of Destiny 2, and that's partly because I've always been fascinated by Vex architecture, going all the way back to Vault of Glass. I guess that's why Argos is partly my favorite as well. Lots of Vex things going on in there. So that's what I wanted to do first, but I also did want to talk about the monitor as a whole, sort of in review form. I threw a lot of buzzwords at you guys, and if you don't do a lot of PC gaming, or if you're not into that world, you might not understand what any of that meant, so I will explain. I just wanted to show you guys some of the gameplay first and kind of show off what the HDR experience is like, because it is fantastic. So first, 4K, that's pretty simple. That's the resolution of the monitor. I'd say 1080p is pretty much the standard at the moment for PC gaming, which is 1920 by 1080. This monitor is 4K, which is 3840 by 2160, quite large, basically 4 times the size. Now, this monitor is a 27-inch monitor, and for 4K, to a lot of people, that is going to seem small. To others, it's going to be in the sweet spot. With a 27-inch monitor, you're getting a higher PPI, pixels per inch, than a 32-inch monitor. 32-inch monitor has a bit more real estate on it, and I've seen every single argument in every other YouTube review of this monitor. 27 is the best, 32 is the best. It all depends on what you like. Next, HDR is high dynamic range, which has been around for a little while now with regards to monitors, and has only very recently been getting more support from game developers as the technology starts to become more available. In very short, HDR is all about trying to make your viewing experience on a monitor look more like real life. Darker darks, brighter brights, better contrast with a wider range of colors. With regards to 4K, it's basically upgrading that 4K experience from what you already have. It's higher in quality than the standard dynamic range. Bet I really blew your mind with that one. SDR uses a bit depth of 8 bits per sample, while HDR can go to 10-bit color, and so you can get better quality colors and a wider color gamut compared to a conventional display. Refresh rate is the rate at which your monitor refreshes the screen, or rather how many times per second your monitor updates. This is not the same as frame rate, which is how often a video feed can get an entire frame of new information to your monitor. If you're playing on a monitor that has a 60 hertz refresh rate, that means the monitor can only refresh 60 times per second, meaning a frame rate higher than 60 frames per second is basically wasted since your monitor can't go any faster than that. This monitor has 3 refresh rates, 98, 120, and 144 hertz. 98 hertz keeps the 10-bit RGB 444 color support with HDR, but drops to 8-bit RGB 444 with dithering at 120 hertz. So it's not true 10-bit, but the monitor tries to approximate that 10-bit experience. And with 144 hertz, where you actually need to overclock the monitor to do that, it drops the coloring to YUV 422 chroma subsampling. If you have absolutely no idea what I just said, what that essentially means is that as the refresh rate gets faster, the bit and color quality is going to dip a little bit. For high action or very competitive games, specifically shooters, you're going to want a higher refresh rate, whereas for less intense games or games that don't rely on insanely fast reaction times or non-competitive games, 98 hertz and HDR is amazing looking. And even if you put it on 120 hertz, it still looks pretty darn good. Finally, G-Sync is done through NVIDIA hardware, where if you have an NVIDIA graphics card and a monitor with G-Sync, it'll match your refresh rate to the frame rate of your game. When these are not matched up, sometimes you can experience screen tearing, which is that annoying effect where a screen is showing multiple frames in a single refresh, and that can make your gameplay not exactly smooth. G-Sync attempts to rectify this by constantly trying to match both your refresh rate and the game's frame rate so that you don't get that screen tearing. The reason why this monitor is such a big deal is because up until recently, you couldn't really get 4K and HDR and high refresh rates all in one monitor. I use Asus VG248QE monitors, which is a great entry-level 144Hz refresh rate monitor. And what Asus did with the 27U is they took that monitor and they stretched it out, made it 4K, and gave it HDR and G-Sync. This monitor in particular also has a 4 ms response time, which means very low latency between typing on the keyboard or moving your mouse and having it happen on screen. It's not the lowest I've ever seen on a monitor, but given the other stats of this monitor, it's pretty darn low, basically unnoticeable to most people. The monitor also does have a fan built into it, so that's something to keep in mind, but with a set of headphones on, I have not been able to hear it over the sound of an actual fan blowing air at me, much less over the sound of the game itself. ROG also gave it a bunch of extra gamery bells and whistles, including a giant light-up logo on the back if you want it. I don't normally have the extra lights on and all that other stuff because I might as well live in a dungeon where no one dares to tread, so I have no one to impress with all of that fancy stuff. The bezels on the monitor are pretty thick compared to some other modern day bezels, but that doesn't really bother me too much. It's more of an aesthetic choice, if anything. So, it's a fantastic monitor and there's nothing wrong with it. No, I do have a couple of gripes with the monitor. The first one, and this shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, is that you need a lot of GPU power to keep things steady at 4K at 120 FPS, or you need to play on lower settings. SLI isn't nearly as popular as it used to be, nor has it really felt necessary in the last couple of years for AAA gaming, so you really need to bring some serious power to max this thing out and have max settings. This is not for the faint of heart. Another smaller thing is HDR support. There isn't a ton of it because the technology is still kind of being adopted. You got your Amazon Prime, your Netflix, your iTunes, etc. But as far as gaming, well, it's a growing scene that should be getting some more support over the next couple of years. Destiny 2 obviously has it conveniently, and I know Anthem, another game I hope to be diving into, will be coming with HDR support. But otherwise, there's only a few dozen titles capable of actually utilizing HDR. Regardless, this is still one of the top monitors out there if you're into 4K gaming and you need that higher than 60 Hz refresh rate, or you need that HDR experience. If you're out there looking for the top of the line kind of hardware, if you're that level of an enthusiast and you have the cash to spare, this is a very expensive monitor. It's not getting much better than this for the time being. However, if you're into esports style games, your CSGOs, your League of Legends, Dota, you're probably not going to need this level of graphical fidelity. You're probably going to want to stick with a 1080p, super high refresh rate monitor, 144, 165, 180, up to 240 Hertz with low latency response times, 1 ms. It'll probably be a while before we start seeing 4K getting above 144 Hertz to the point where you can actually run games in high quality at that level. But for the RPG player, Destiny player, stuff like Battlefield, Doom, or general enthusiast PC player, this is the real deal. Thanks again to NVIDIA for sponsoring this video. If you're interested in getting an HDR monitor or a G-Sync monitor of your own, you can check the link in the description. I've heard great things about the 278Q, and compared to the 27U at least, it's a bit more affordable. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.